Yeah, well, there's maybe a benefit to that. I'm not sure if any of you voted on our portal, but yeah, you did put some comments in, etc. So that might give you some bonus, which you wouldn't have gotten when you were here to discuss the algorithm. It was actually interesting because there were two people, two awarded teams, Kenrick and Warder and Robert Haas, for the first time. So it was a bit of a switch, but that was actually a good thing because they are both very numerical inclined, so to say. And so I could have a good chat with them on quadratic voting and all that kind of stuff. But actually, what we wanted to do is to have the blog post out like somewhere in the morning or afternoon today. But yeah, maybe I was a little bit late in delivering it and people ill and things to do. So it's not published yet, but I will show it to you. And actually, I already gave the link, right, with the password on Discord.
Unfortunately, I couldn't open it. For some reason, it says you're not allowed to preview drafts.
Okay, and didn't you get a form
From
to enter the password phrase? Okay.
No.
Well, then you're up for a surprise. I would suggest to put the blog post on screen and then go through it, and then I can introduce you to the results, which I think were quite interesting. And yeah, you can comment on it and I can maybe explain something wherever needed. So, outcomes of deep funding governance round 1. So as a flashback, what we set out to do is we did this experiment for 3 reasons. Of course, we want to know what the community was thinking and what they would like to have improved. That's reason 1. Reason 2 is having a real hands-on experiment with reputation ratings, and then also using them to give extra additional weight to votes. And this is possible since a month or 2 months or so, since our portal partner has included the Web3 login on their portal, so we could connect activity on the portal with activity in our voting portal by means of the unique identifier of their wallet address. And finally, maybe not the most important, but still interesting, to see what would happen if we would give an incentive to people in the form of AGIX to be distributed for putting in effort and work and time to give productive comments. So let's go directly to the results. The result is that we will have a pool for existing services, and as I will show you later, if we had used another calculation method, it might even have been a complete round instead of a pool. But the main thing here is that there are only very few people that that would be totally against it. So I think there's clear consensus on that thing. Now the other one, do we need a round for ideation, proposals in the ideation phase, was a little bit less determined. It was more equal. And actually there was impact from quadratic voting in the first part, but there was also impact from the extra weight gained by reputation by some people that were active on the portal and that voted, which eventually made the outcome of that question flip. Originally, 1 token, 1 vote, it would have stand no chance. With quadratic voting, it was quite equal. and then it tipped off by the extra weight given for reputation. So that's a really interesting, an interesting result, and at least it shows that that it makes sense, that this reputation actually impacts outcomes. So I think it's a good result. We can talk a little bit more about it later, and I will show you the details also. There's Tivo. Regarding goal 3, we distribute 100,000 AGIX, so that's quite a lot. Based on reputation scores, we will distribute that, meaning that the lowest range would be something like 1,500 AGIX, and the highest would be 10,500 AGIX for, and that consists of 2 parts, a little bit for the act of voting, and most related to the reputation score. So that is really a lot. And I hope that will motivate other people in next rounds when we will do this again, which I think we will, to also join in and add comments and add proposals. If not for the greater good of AGIX, then maybe also a little bit for getting some rewards for that. I hope that's not the only reason, but it might help a little bit. Just give that extra push, right? So I already spilled most of the beans right now, but this is the general overview, and I'm very happy. I'm very happy with the result. Let's go down and put it on screen. So you see here, and this is the official rating. So it includes quadratic rates, meaning that we take the square root of every amount of every wallet and use that as voting power. And the result of that is that the extremes are flattened a little bit. So the few wallets that have really high amounts of AGIX get a lesser weight than they would have had purely based on one token, one vote. And that is also a lesson learned from round one, where we actually saw and analyzed that, there were a few wallets that had an uncommon large impact on the overall vote. So I think this is an improvement. There are also risks involved to that, but we can talk about that later as well, and we will mitigate that. So only 1,800 points, I should say, votes for answer C, and answer C was no, we don't need an ideation. No, we don't need existing services on our platform. And then depending on how you count it, a lot of support for A and B. But in the end, we will do a pool. So question A was, let's have a pool with existing services. So that's where we are going for in round 2. Felix.
One question. One of the, I think, KPIs was how many people actually vote on the governance proposals. Do you have some insights there?
Yes. Coming right up.
Stupid me. Just have to be patient.
Let me go. Where the engagement? Yeah. So here are the raw numbers. So if you look at all the votes cast based on tokens, that would be 19 million. And coming from 84 unique wallets. And in round 1, the regular round, we had 158 wallets voting. So it's more than half, more than 50% of the people who voted in the real round, I could say, also voted in the governance round, which in itself, I think, is a very good result.
I was afraid about 10, 20 votes, something like. But...
Yeah, okay. I was reading this. I was thinking I made a mistake here, but I was reading it wrong. So these 48 unique wallets represented almost 10 million tokens. And if we look at round one, these 58 wallets represented 23 million tokens. So it's about 50%. Let's put it like that. And here I explain how these raw tokens are related to voting points or voting power by quadratic voting and reputation weights. There were actually 5. So from these 84, there were 5 wallets that were also active on the portal that scored reputation points that were identifiable by their wallets and therefore got an additional voting weight. And we'll get to that later, but the voting weight was, we added voting weight by a factor 1 till 5. 1 would be for the one person that did vote, that had a login, but didn't create any comments or proposals, so he didn't get any additional reputation, so it stayed the same. And the rest was done on a tier system, but we'll get there later. And the statistics are that we had 16 proposals. One of them was not quite accurate for the experiment, for the purpose of the experiment. So usually I say around 15. A nice number of 269 comments, 198 upvotes, and only 3 downvotes. So we were all very nice to each other. And 14 icon-based positive reactions like smileys, etc., and non-negative. So this is based on the existing functionality of our portal, and this is what we use to calculate reputation. I'll get back later a little bit on how we exactly calculated reputation, but let's first have a look at this very nice graphic, and I'll show you the interaction version. This was created by Robert Haas, one of the participants and winners in round 1. So very grateful for him to do this. So what this shows you, you can show very quickly what the voting weight was going to question 1A. But you also see that it is very well distributed over all wallets. It's not that only the larger, only the smaller or whatever. So in blue, it's a little bit less equal, but all in all, it shows that there is a clear consensus here. And it also shows, that those were really the exceptions to the rule. And this is question 2, question 2A. Should we have the pool, the ideation pool? And this one is, should we not have it? And also here you see that the opinions are randomly distributed across the sizes of the wallets, which I think is a healthy sign. And a nice touch here is that you see the orange dots, or maybe I should call them gold, are the ones that are rewarded with extra voting weight. So if you have already a sizable wallet and you would get 5 times the amount of voting weight, that will easily bring you in the higher regions. And that's also the purpose of that additional weight. And 5 may look like a lot, but remember, there are only 3 people, I think, that got, or 5 people that got a rating of 5, but 3 that, not sure how many voted. I think 2 or 3 that voted with an additional weight of 5. But these were people that put in like 40 comments. So they probably read all proposals and were really active. So from that perspective, I think it makes sense to give them really a substantially higher weight than any random, also very appreciated community member that is anonymous and that we don't know, of which we don't know how engaged they really are. So if this is a peek into the future, and I hope that in the next round, I think there's no reason not to repeat this same mechanism in the actual deep funding round. If more people will have a Web3 login and will use and will vote on our portal, and I'm also confident the next time you will be able to vote with AGIX on Cardano. Wait a minute. Remember, I should. One moment. So I'll finish my sentence. Then the impact of the people being active on the portal will be even higher, and maybe we can play around a little bit with the weights, etc. But I think the message is that if you're active and involved and engaged, you have a higher say in the results, and I think that makes sense. And if you don't do that, it's also fine. You will still have some voting weight, but it's less than somebody who is really very much engaged. So that's what this image shows very clearly. Any comments on this?
Yeah, one thing what quite surprises, I think, is that, let's say, for example, the 5 rewarded wallets, let's say where meritocratic systems really hit in already, they have been in quite strong consensus with the general vote. To say there is not a huge misalignment between their vote and the general vote.
That's a good...
But actually,
yeah.
But will be interesting to see how this then actually plays out on proposals itself then. If you say, oh, okay, let's implement it to actually a real deep fund round. Is it still possible that this 5, let's say, par excellence voters are still able to represent the general vote on proposals then as well? Or if we see a bigger friction there then?
Well, there are several things here. If we would have done 1 token, 1 vote, the outcome would have been different. So this is already changed by having quadratic voting. And these people actually influenced the vote by having a larger weight. So in that sense, it's not that surprising, but you will also see. Let me go over them individually. So this one only voted on 1 question. You see, that's interesting. And this one actually voted for question 1, was one of the few that voted against the consensus. Here, this one was against both. But this one probably carried a lot of weight. And was with consensus. So it's not that clear cut. There's also difference of opinion in the people that are engaged, but their weight is higher than average. Yeah, and then the end result is that their combined engagement and the amount of tokens they have, because that also still counts, managed to flip the outcome, actually. So I really like this image. Oh, I'll put my camera back on. I really like this image because it's very intuitive and it shows you in one view what voting behavior was, and by making it interactive, you see that there are only a few wallets there that only voted on 1, most voted on both questions. And you see the extra, the reputation weights on the right end of the spectrum. So it all makes sense to me. Right, let's go back to the blog post. Engagement. So there was. Was quite a bit. Of course, we hope that it will grow in future rounds, but part of this engagement is also that we will never have 100% engagement on our portal. But the most important part is that the people that are engaged are the ones that truly care. And the other part is that it's important that the votes of the people who truly care are represented in the end results, whether it's for governance or for real deep funding rounds. So, reward distributions. I already mentioned the rewards. So it's we gave 5% of total rewards just for the act of voting. If you have a reputation score also on the portal. So for those people active on the portal that also voted, 5% of the rewards is 5,000 AGIX was reserved just for that. And 95% was for actual reputation. So yeah, we put it in four different tiers. The reputation, I'll show you that later, and that is represented in these amounts. So that's why they are rather similar to each other. But these are the people that really got a good benefit from their behavior on the portal. So I haven't disbursed this yet. I'll have a good look at the AGIX on Cardano wallet that they provided, and that's where we will be transferring these amounts to. All right. Oh yeah, important. These people, Jan, Mihai, and Peter, they don't get anything. They don't get any AGIX. I don't get any extra AGIX. But I did.
Time to riot.
Sorry?
Time to riot. Let's give SingularityNET some tokens.
Yeah, I think we're well off already, and we did assign ourselves reputation. And the reason for that is that I hope that at some point in the future, reputation will also influence visibility of comments and remarks on the portal. And I think it's valid that also people inside the SingularityNET would have a higher visibility based on their scored reputation. All right. Yeah, one person with a Web3 login that didn't create comments or proposals, so he didn't get any additional reputation score. But he did get a voting reward, so he or she, I don't know. Yeah, and I also noticed there were people that did get reputation scores, but that didn't vote. And actually, there's relatively many people that were engaged on the portal but didn't vote. Normally, you would expect everybody who's that engaged on the portal would also be motivated to vote. I can understand the reason for this. We don't vote with AGIX on Cardano yet. So for some of the people here in this group, that would be a hurdle, which is completely understandable, which is another reason why I hope to have more connections between portal and voting portal in round 2. Whenever you have a question, please interrupt me. Reputation scores gained, so the above, the rewards, I put that on top because that might be more interesting to some people, but these rewards are actually based on reputation scores. And what we did, we created 4 tiers for reputation, and the highest tier we got a weight of 5, and the lowest we got we gave a tier of 2. If you have any reputation gains at all. So here you see the actual numbers. We have a clear winner here, but that's because I'm a professional in this context. But a very good runner-up was Dr. Ferrum here, a well-known guest in this setting as well. And well, here we have Tifo, and Joanna. Well, I won't name all of you, but you can see that some are really high and some are quite low. But we thought it would be a good idea to flatten that also a bit by putting them in different boxes, different tiers, so to speak. And I'll get back on the way we did that a little bit later. So scoring rules details, I think this is an easy to understand, well, almost easy to understand one for everybody. These are the points we came up with as a reward for all the activity. So creating a proposal is important, but we split that in two things. You would get a reward just for creating a proposal, no matter how lousy it is. There weren't any lousy ones, but just as a matter of speaking. But you'll get also rewards based on the rating that other people gave you in the portal. And for that, we have kind of a complex algorithm, which I maybe shouldn't go into in this setting. You can read it in the blog. I try to explain it as good as possible. Basically, we multiplied the amount of people voting with the average vote given, so that it's not just the rate that counts, but also the amount of people that rated you. So if you have an 8 average and there were 10 people voting for you, maybe that's a better result than having a 9 with only 1 people voting for you. So we tried to take that, or we actually did take that into account. And I'll come back to the multiplier a little bit later, and use both components as a reward for proposals. Well, let's finish the proposal thing right away. Then I figured that what would be a good ratio between points given, reputation points given for actually submitting a proposal versus points received for giving comments and giving feedback and reacting on comments, etc. Anyone would like to have a go? What would be a good ratio in percentages? What percentage would you have given to people just for the act of proposing, and what percentage of the awards for the act of commenting? And one person can earn on both ends. Anybody has an idea? Then shoot. Then I'll compare it with what I actually did.
I will use a dynamical approach. So using current results of, let's say there are 20 people in the deep found rounding, like doing stuff, then perhaps like 25% means that the good amount of proposals would be 5. And then if more people join, the less proposals you actually want in, so that you have like a golden line of proposals. And then you have at the other end, you have, it's basically the same. So when the amount of proposals deviates from the golden line, then doesn't matter if it's up or down, you basically start.
All right, that's interesting.
Take the percent of how much it should be proposal worth.
So you start from the assumption that there should be a kind of ratio between the number of proposals and the number of comments.
Yep.
Okay. I started from the assumption that there should be a fixed ratio between the number of points earned by submitting proposals versus the number of points earned by submitting comments. And assuming that if you have more proposals, then probably also more comments, or you could say that suppose there would be a huge rush of proposals coming in, then the ratio would shift. Then you would have then the weight of the comments would be lower. But actually, the importance of these comments would be higher. We would like to have even more comments if there are more proposals. So by having, and I'll just give it to you, by having a fixed ratio between the number of proposals and between the number of reputation points gained by proposals and by comments, I think you will actually incentivize a little bit, motivate people to actually or make more comments, give more comments, or maybe submit a proposal. Right now, the ratio that I defined was 20% of the points go to the submitters of proposals, and 80% of the points go to all people giving comments, etc. So this means that if you don't submit a proposal, and I imagine right now that we will do it in the same way or similar way in round 2, you can still score a very high reputation score by commenting and by giving good feedback. On the other hand, if there would only be one proposal, then there are still a lot of points to be earned by creating the second proposal or the third proposal. So that's another way of looking at it, Tivo. So actually, by doing it this way, you would motivate a kind of balance there. Feel free to comment if you think this is stupid or brilliant or average. And if you all agree, then I will just, and then I'll let it sink in a little bit, and then I'll continue and we can come back to it later.
You would have needed a my report for that to kind of represent it.
Yeah, it's
graphics, where these points are coming.
It's not the easiest topic here, right? It's quite complex and technical. And I also said to Peter, well, I don't know how many people actually read this blog from top to bottom, but it's still important to write it because it's about transparency. And I want to be transparent in how we did those calculations and also be open for feedback and improvement.
I think for me, it sounds solid enough for a beginning, but from my perspective, it misses a little bit like some really innovative idea to say, whoa, hey, let's turn this whole thing really fully around. Because I think what will happen also for posts like this, there are two kinds of people who read it. Contributors, not really. They don't give so much shit about. They look more on, okay, how can I make use on my individual base of the whole platform? The people who will read it are people ones who really commit to the thing and really want to go deep into, and the people who will try to cheat the system. And like it is laid out here, I think it will break after 4 or 5 rounds, because people can easily cheat the system actually. That's what we saw in Catalyst as well, a lot. And then your highest ranked people are actually spammers. Which have a very friendly...
You're right. So there's always, it's very hard to make a system which is completely foolproof and will not be, cannot be broken.
It's a process.
What you can do is limit the impact of bad actors. That's the first thing. So maybe not bring it to 0, but make it so small that it's not, that it usually won't have a big impact on the outcomes. That's the most important thing. And I think there's also always the human aspect. I would always, well, maybe not always, but in the beginning, I would keep the option open that in case we see clearly fraudulent behavior, we will penalize, whatever. So if I would see people creating a script that would submit proposals and then put 100,000 proposals there so they can have all 20% of the reputation, yeah, then clearly they will be blacklisted. And I won't put a special rule in under what conditions exactly they will be blacklisted, because there will always be something around that. But At the beginning, we will use our common sense for that, but we will be transparent in reporting why and how we did it and for whom. And then as we move along, we will have an increasingly good understanding of what kind of fraudulent tactics there are, strategies, and then we will be increasingly, hopefully, be able to counter that to an extent and a moment that maybe at some point we feel safe to have our hands disattached and say we can't touch it anymore because we have such faith in the system. And if it then goes wrong, then we have one round where it goes wrong, and then we have to fix it for the next round. That is how I expect this to be. So it will be a kind of an, if we are successful with deep funding and with SingularityNET and decentralized AI and all that, then it will be an arms race, because it will be popular and there will be people coming here for the wrong reasons. So yeah, that's also a reason why I'm transparent in all these calculations. So on one hand, it makes us vulnerable because people know exactly what the rules are, so they know exactly how to exploit them. But on the long run, I think it makes it stronger because we will have the intelligence of the crowd and all of you to improve these rules and be completely continuously working on improving those rules. All right. Let's continue. So this was about the proposal score, and so the multiplier is used to bring the total points gained from proposals up to that 20% of the total reputation points distributed in a round. By the way, Felix, one thing that I aim to improve this, well, there are actually two ways. I'm thinking, let's just do this organically. Let us do this organically, this discussion. One other way we aim to demotivate unwanted behavior is by also having a reputation system for wallets. So we will count in how many rounds a wallet was active, so that somebody who suddenly is new and wants to change the whole thing over doesn't have a history. But the latest thing is that we will also be looking at the earliest date that AGI or AGIX was added to that wallet. So that, and the reason for that is that we are doing quadratic voting. And we are very clear-minded that quadratic voting gives the opportunity to people to split their wallets and that way have a higher weight. But we mitigate that by giving also weighted amounts to the voting weight based on the history of the wallet. So the older it is, the long-term associate you are, supporter of SingularityNET, the more weight you will have. And the main thing is that people will not be able to split it just for this round and then expect to have a huge gain by that. The main thing, however, to mitigate that is by having more people on the platform gaining reputation by actually productive behavior and giving them extra weight as well. Which also makes it less interesting to split your wallet, because those wallets will not gain reputation weights unless you're really smart and have a script or whatever that will post comments for each of these split wallets on our portal. Well, you understand it's already getting quite complicated, so you have to be really motivated to do that. But hopefully then we can still weed it out by looking at the history of people and by other people who will vote down certain comments, and maybe at some point we can have some AI there as well, doing some analysis. And the cherry on the cake here would be and that is something not for this or next round, but it will take a while because we need proper tooling for that first, would be if we make the whole reputation system liquid. So if you get an upvote from somebody with a high reputation, that would mean more, or a downvote for that matter, that would mean a lot more than if you get an upvote or a downvote from a very new person in the system. So that is another way to account for history and accumulated reputation, etc. So for all those people here that are listening to this with the purpose of manipulating this system, you have to be here quick, and you have to be really active, and otherwise I think it will be very hard if you start in round 2, 3, 4 and the community and the system around it is maturing, to still get a high position based on fraudulent or undesired behavior. So we're putting up our defenses here one by one. Probably there will always be ways to trick it or to influence it. But I think with all these things, voting reputation or wallet reputation, reputation in the system based on constructive behavior, and the liquid aspect of that reputation, I think these three things together do make a very strong defensive system against undesired behavior. Let's call it undesired, not even fraudulent, right? Because it's allowed. You can split your wallet. There's no law against it. It's just not what we would like to see. All right. But there's ways to go, and you know, there's an Excel sheet behind this these calculations. In the next round, we probably, if we are in the next round, if we are looking for awards that suppose we would have another 100,000 AGIX distributed for engagement, we will only look at the newly created reputation. But if we look at voting weights, we will look at the engagement in deep funding round 2, but we will also take into account the reputation score gained in this governance round. And maybe it will be something like 2080 or 3070, or I don't know. That is another way. But that's also a complicating factor, right? So that will make the next Excel sheet more complex than this one, and then the one after more complex. So there's also more room for errors there. We're all human. We can make errors in these Excel sheets. But then imagine that you would have this system with reputation per round based on all these scores here. And then you want to add liquid reputation, saying that not every comment is equal, but it depends on the person who gave that comment. Yeah, then I'm not sure if my Excel sheet will be able to keep up with that. So that is a tool that I really would like to have. And I plan to have some discussions with people, with Sway, maybe also with some readily awarded team members and some others, to see if we can create such a thing. And while we're on the topic, ideally, what I see today, maybe I'll think about it different tomorrow after I had a couple of conversations, or next week. I can imagine that we would make such a tool for SingularityNET based on our ratings and based on our systems. But what I would really like, if we could make such a reputation scoring tool generic, so that we can also plug it into, well, Catalyst. Of course, then it has to be used and the tooling has to be ready, etc. But also for other programs out there. And then it would become even more interesting. Suppose that people could get a reputation on Catalyst for things that they're doing there. And people would get a reputation on deep funding for things they're doing here. And then we could say in deep funding, we will not only count your reputation gained in previous rounds, we will also 10% of the reputation points given or whatever, we will base on your reputation in Catalyst. So 10% of all reputation will come from Catalyst. So people that already have proven that they are very constructive and helpful, etc., in Catalyst will inherit a little bit of that reputation when they come to deep funding. And maybe there are other platforms out there that do the same. And then, yeah, we can get an ecosystem of people with high reputation, and somehow it will all be connected.
Cross reputation, cross ecosystem, cross project reputation. This would be all. It goes a little bit also in the way then of DIDs and SSI. Why wouldn't make sense if I have a DID on Ethereum, one for Polkadot, one for Cardano, and each time I have to create another. This would be, oh my god.
Well, and you can continue to configure this in higher levels. You can say, well, Cardano Catalyst is really similar, so I will really give a high weight to reputation score gained in Catalyst. But suppose that, well, another project that is less related to our ecosystem would have similar system. We could say, well, we'll give them a little bit because at least they have shown that they're serious people, but it doesn't say a lot about their merits in this topic. And so you can do it topic-based, you can do it platform-based, you can do a combination of those. You can make it infinitely complex and infinitely fun. And hopefully also by that way very nuanced and valuable, so that you're not scored, so that's the important thing of this whole reputation system, that it's not based on one simple parameter, your A or B, but based on a whole string of activities across the line and history, etc. And that would make it stronger and more resilient and more valuable, I think. Also more valuable because it would take more effort to gain a higher reputation score based on all those criteria. So therefore, it would also represent real value. So we're deviating a little bit from the results of round 2 here. But yeah, this is an important topic which is close to my heart. And actually what I tried out to do with this experiment is do a really hands-on first step. That's what the experiment was really about. This first step in this direction, see if it's feasible and see if we can continue on that path. So based on that and based on these results, that's the reason why I'm really happy with the outcome of this. Let's see if we have anything else important here. Yeah, so the reputation rating tiers. The way I did it right now, the top 20 get a weight 5. The runners-up 60 to 80 get a weight factor, are in tier B, get a weight factor B. And then I have a little bit larger box, so to speak, of 30 percentiles and another 30 percentiles that get lower weights. This is really adequate for this round, I think. I can imagine if we have more people engaged and a bigger audience. I can imagine, for instance, that we will make a separate tier for the top 5%. Because what you will see often in these kind of contexts is that there are just a handful of people that everybody knows and that really put all their time and effort in it, and are also really accomplished in giving good comments. So I can imagine that these are at some point in some of the next round, these will surface, and these will be the people that will be given even more weight relatively than the others. But this is open for discussion. But this is what we did in this round. So we have 4 different tiers. So whatever your score is, you will get into one of these 4 boxes, so to speak. And based on that, we have given you a weight factor. So it's not completely relative to the exact score that you gained. All right. The impact of the reputation rating. So if we would not have used reputation weights, what would have been the results? That's what I'm showing in this table. For question 1, there would have been no material change. It would still have been question 1 that won easily. For question 2, however, you see that actually the outcome would have been different without the reputation weights, and then answer 2 would have won. So in that case, there would not have been a pool for ideation in the next round. And if we would also take off quadratic voting, so just pure 1 token, 1 vote, like we did in round 1 actually, the outcome would be even different. So for question 2, it would still be answer 2, no separate pool for ideation, but also question 1 would have changed. If we would have done it 1 token, 1 vote, the outcome would be, let's not limit existing services to a single pool, but do a full round just for that. So it does show the enthusiasm for people for this concept of having a pool for existing services. So I think that's nice. To be clear for everybody here, I don't have a clear preference for any of these answers. So I have no motivation to steer. I think answer 2 would have been, for question 1 would have been cool as well. And I think answer 2 also. To be honest, I have one preference. I would have been disappointed if it would have been answer 3, if we couldn't have done anything with existing services. But I'm in good company there. So, and also question 2, I was even more neutral there. Both are fine for me. But with the additional reputation weight, it turns out that we will have this ideation pool. And I think it's good. It's good to try it out as an experiment. We won't make it a whole big pool. We'll keep it a small pool with some conditions there. And we'll do it for round 2. And we'll see what will come out of it. And then we'll decide whether we'll continue that in follow-up rounds. Or we may have, sorry, I was being caught, I was distracted. Or we may even have a new vote on the same topic. Listen, we did it once. Should we do it again? Or maybe have 3 proposals to change it? I don't know. Maybe after the next round, we'll have other topics that we think are more important at that point in time to ask the community. But yeah, this is the background. These are the options, and this is how we treat that. Yeah, so conclusions and what's next. What's next is the next round of deep funding. There's quite a bit of work right now in writing down all new rules and conditions and publishing them on the website. Maybe create a video about it, I don't know, before we can start the next round. If everything would have been the same as round 1, We could have started it tomorrow. But I think I want to give us some time to properly write everything down so it's clear to everybody what the rules are. Here it was an experiment. Maybe I will still call it an experiment in the next round, but I think more of the rules will already be predefined, because in round 2 it's about actual grants that are more important to people than the awards that you can get as a bonus for your activity. So I think we need to be a little bit more careful there. But like you mentioned, Felix, if something really goes awkward, goes strange, then we keep the right to change it if necessary. Just for the sake of having clear and unbiased representative outcomes. All right. Any questions?
No, I just want to say this is very, very cool and very insightful. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'm very interested in viewing like the Excel, not the Excel sheets or whatever is public, like the calculations and whatnot, if I don't know where to find them.
Yeah, so I didn't put them, make them public yet. The main reason is that all the wallet addresses are there, and I'd rather not just publish them, even though they're public addresses, and maybe in some cases they can be inferred already if you put enough effort to it. Still, I don't just want to throw them out there. If I take them out, then the Excel sheet will collapse. Of course, I can create a new sheet with paste everything as values, but then it will be harder for you to see. But what you can see here already are all the variables that I used. So the tiers, the weighting, the points, and the scores for where is it? How we calculated the proposal score. But if you think you really want to see the actual sheet, yeah, okay, then I'll have to make it public, and then take out the addresses somehow. I'm all for transparency, so I'm actually surprised that after this long talk and all these details, you're still motivated to look
Sorry,
at.
I'm a math person. I work with numbers sometimes in my head, so equations and stuff click better. But no, this is completely fine. Whatever works.
No. It's also fine. I figured that this information would be already too much for most people, actually. So I thought I can put it out there, but who will actually look at it? But if there's an interested, then why not? And I can put it out there. And yeah, if you see an error in the Excel sheet, or if you see something that you think could be improved one way or another, then please let me know. Felix.
When looking back, when we started the whole thing, there have been really the main fear was, are there actually people submitting proposals for the governance experiment? And are there people actually voting on them? But I think this was a really nice success, actually. So from the takeaway, do you plan to say, oh, okay, once there's a deep funding round 2, between deep funding round 2 and 3, would there be a second, let's say, also improved governance experiment /2?
I think so, yes. I think that would be a good idea right now. I think it's valuable. I think I liked it. I think we got good feedback. I think it helps us to learn and to evaluate what happens in a round. So the way I'm thinking about it today is that maybe in the first year, the first 4 or 5 rounds, I don't know, it would be good to have a governance round, maybe 3, I don't know. After each regular round, have a governance round. And I can imagine that as we are progressing, we will have fewer governance round. So then we will have 2 rounds and then a governance round, because at some point there will be less things to discuss and things would hopefully get more stable.
Actually, I see it the other way around. As more it evolves, as more complex the things become, and as more people you have and involved, then as more importance you maybe is for the governance round.
Yeah. Well, there are different options. There's also, so it's a parallel track, right? So we can, in any way, we can continue discuss it continuously on social media, on Discord, etc. At what point we need to organize a vote? Yeah, I can also imagine that at some point that will be more like an organic thing, that we will base voting, actual votes, on engagement on our portal. I don't think that would work today. We actually tried it. There is a mission. There was a mission from the beginning where you could give input on what you want to have changed. But I think doing it like this in an organized way will bring on more engagement. But maybe if we get there, Felix, that we have this larger community that is super engaged on all kinds of things, then maybe we'll have an organic thing where we say, well, we give some conditions based on which a proposal will be added to a vote. That would be the ultimate thing. So if there are X amount of comments and X amount of positive comments, and the rating is more than Y, etc., and maybe some more conditions, then we can say, okay, this is now matured enough to put forward for an actual vote. And then it could also at some point maybe, yeah, I mean, outcomes of these things have to be implemented in the next round. So in that sense, there's always a relation to rounds. But apart from that, it can be a completely parallel thing. And another way I can imagine things continuing. So the proposal of having a pool with existing services. In a different situation, the outcome would have been that this would not be a pool, but a full round. So I'm really interested to see what will actually come out of this. If community members, for instance, will be activated to start looking for services that we can put on the portal, or help out actually onboarding these services on the portal and get a reward for that. Suppose that would be a great success. I really hope it. I think that would be the greatest thing. Then there might be reason to say, well, this is such a success. Let's put a whole round to that. And then maybe we can have alternate rounds. We can have one round for regular, like we did the first round for regular solutions that still need to be developed. And then one round for existing services. And then alternate those, and then in the meantime do all the governance stuff. So and then we have the tooling that we need to create to make sure and configure that and improve that. So there's work to be done.
Another question then is as well, okay, now we know in Deep Fund Round 2 there will be our own pool for onboarding already existing AI services, which means, oh, okay, now we have a challenge actually, because this is something quite different than if you ask people to come and build their own services, which requires maybe some very specific skill sets, what we had already a conversation around, right? So say, if we want then actually this result becoming a success, what we have to do now in order to make this then to roll out that success as well. Because onboarding an already existing one requires totally different skill sets, I think, than creating a new one.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
definitely. And I think actually it is more reachable for a lot of community members. So maybe community members have knowledge of existing services they would like to see on a platform, and they could reach out to the developer of that service, and they could say, hey, listen, let's team up. and I'll do all the administrative work on the portal and create a proposal, etc. But you give your code, and maybe there's a third person that will help with the actual onboarding of the service or whatever. And then they will put a reward to that, and that is something that any community member that is not a developer can do. So there's some overlap here with, well,
what we think at Unfax, and when it comes into integrations, this is a really difficult thing, integrations. Because the thing now is that it's not a community anymore. For the integrations, you need the developer teams from the entity. So in this regard, then there's much more effort needed from SingularityNET Foundation now to make these integrations happen. Because the people who onboard these projects, then they will need to come and say, hey, okay, I have this massive, nice platform. They want to integrate here on the platform. Singularity Foundation, we need your developer teams to make this happen, because the community is not able to leverage this integration actually. So what happens now is that the community engagement and commitments shifts a little bit more, or much more actually, to Singularity Foundation itself and to their requirements of delivering effective integrations.
Well, integration. I would call it publication, publishing your service on the platform, but that would be a great problem to have. And in the end, as I've mentioned before, if you have service and you run into issues in onboarding it, publishing it on our platform, we will help you. But the first step that we will take is say, well, here is all our documentation. Please have a look, go through it, and let us know where you are running into issues. So we do expect some effort from either the developer or the community member, or a third community member who's dedicated to publishing. It would be great if two people would team up from the community, and one that would be focused on this publishing thing, and the other that would be focused on getting developers in. Now, there can also be substantial work related. So if you have an AI service that is really interesting but isn't API ready, then that could mean that you need to refactor actually that service, and there would be substantial work involved. And that is the reason why also in the previous discussions we said that we don't want to have a fixed award for these services, but it will depend on the circumstances. But I stick with my former statement that any community member would be able to get a reward based on creating a proposal for an existing service. You have to go out into the world, you have to find that service, so you need to have some affinity with the topic and maybe know a little bit what's about. But if you can locate that service and locate the developer of that service, then you have enough to create a proposal. And then you have to motivate the developer to take a few extra steps to publish the service, or find somebody else who can do that for you. Or if all that doesn't work, come to SingularityNET and we will find a way to help you with that, if that proposal is awarded by the community. Because that's necessary, right? And an important thing here as well, the awards will be disbursed for this pool after the proposal is onboarded. So that makes it very interesting for our platform, because we will actually disburse amounts when having the service on our platform. And that also ensures that people have to be serious and not just put names and proposals, but they will actually have to make it happen. So I can see community members here as drivers of this program, of this pool. But if that will actually happen, if people have the time for that and take the effort and are motivated, I don't know. I really don't know. But I hope they will. And I hope that whatever will come out of that pool will give us enough confidence to do it again next time. Maybe do it as a complete round is very ambitious, would be nice. But I hope it will be at least successful enough to continue having that as a fixed pool in all rounds.
So I guess maybe over the coming weeks somewhere, we could also have discussions about that during, for example, this meeting, on how to exactly, like, let's say percentage-wise, how we play around with numbers. Is that something you want to have on a community level, on like a call like this?
Yes, I think we're discussing now internally what the height should be of the next round, what the total amount is. I have some ideas on how to distribute that amount, whatever it will be, among the 5 pools that we indicate. So the 5 pools are a regular pool with no maximum, but just for with a certain total amount. So we don't have a pool for 40K and a pool for, what was it? Was it 150K? 150K anymore. It will just be one pool without a maximum, because we found out that a lot of people would create proposals for 40K because that was the maximum of that pool. And I'd like for this time to keep that open to see what will happen there. The second one would be a pool for existing services. And then there are 3 secondary pools, as I would call them. One would be for marketing proposals. So if you have a very good idea to promote the platform in a quantifiable way, then we can have a small pool for that. We will have a small pool for the proposals in the ideation phase. And we will have, I would say, a medium-sized pool for tooling. And then I'm also hoping that I can motivate some parties to create a proposal for instance, a reputation dashboard or reputation calculation system that is configurable. Maybe a first step that we can build out at later stages. If the community will award such a proposal with their consensus. By the way, I see there are a lot of in my the corner of my eye. I see a lot of things happening in the chat. I really haven't read it. I didn't have time to read it, and usually when I start reading, then I find it hard to distribute my attention. So please shout out if you have anything, or maybe somebody else. If I see some remarks from Nadim, if you're not able to talk, maybe somebody else can put something forward if it hasn't been addressed
No,
yet.
I can. It's just an interesting conversation that Peter and I were having. He was mentioning how can we move data around, reputation data from other platforms to ours and vice versa. Like, for example, Cardano, like we were saying.
Yeah.
And I was just not clear how they would do that. He mentioned through wallet mapping. I was just wondering how they would then know my actions on an off-chain platform like a Catalyst, because all that doesn't happen on a wallet. So just because if this is doable, then it's massive. You know, it's definitely worth exploring.
Oh, it's certainly doable. But you need to have tooling for it, and yeah, there are roughly 2 ways, I would say. Either have it in a centralized database or tokenize it. And if you tokenize it, then yeah, you have proof of reputation from on one chain. Then you can even do it cross-chain, yeah, you can use that as related to your wallet, for instance, and then have it transferred to another platform. So that would be one option there. it would be helpful to have some consensus between systems on how they will use metadata on that on such a system. For instance, what kind of, it would be helpful to have reputation related to topics. So I have a very high reputation on blockchain, but a very poor reputation on AI. That's possible, or vice versa. So it would be helpful to know from people whether this is somebody who has a high reputation on AI or on blockchain or on repairing second-hand cars. But there are, actually I did a lookup on that a while ago. There are open sourced catalogs for that, categorization systems that could give some direction there, but this is quite far ahead. We are not there yet, but this could be potential future. But I think it will be possible to share these reputation rates one way or another. But I'd rather start small, and we started with the smallest way right now with a simple Excel sheet and some handmade rules and calculations and see what happens. The next step would be to make a better tool for that we can really rely on and that we can configure, and then also add additional complexity like liquid reputation. And then the third step, I think, would be making such a tool generic so that everybody can use it and have some configuration on data that goes in, how you will rate it, and what goes out. That could be a step.
One thing what could help there was Swarm. We already start to generate data there, because with the bounty bot and the work what we do there, we set, for example, bounties for SingularityNET as for Swarm, and we see people which are quite engaged in both parts.
Yeah.
And we documentate the whole stuff. And we have around 1,000 rewarded bounties tasks so far in our database. We can see with a direct link to each task where we already create the data and say, where do the people actually engage?
Yeah.
And where we see already, okay, we start to have this kind of resource pool of folks which are quite engaged, not only in Catalyst, but also in SingularityNET.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a start. Eh? We have that token. It's also, there's also a tokenized part there, so we could use that. But yeah, we have to think that through. In the meantime, I'm also thinking about these topics and that metadata. Probably the better way here would be to AI that, basically. Not to have a static list of topics, but to have an AI with proper NLP capabilities and understanding, which is a little bit above the current state of AI, that would be able to infer from all the interactions of all peoples and making all those links and all those, following all those interactions that you mentioned, Felix, and then infer this person is mainly getting good results in these and these and these areas. That would be a very interesting thing.
I think what is quite important, maybe not categories, but a certain request for taxonomy or to create a library of tags, for example, where the AI can relate to and can itself figure out, okay, this person is more a content creator, this person is more translator, this person is more whatnot.
Yeah, it will be more like taxonomy with a hierarchy in it, or maybe it will be even more like thesaurus with more like an unstructured connections and hierarchies. There are all kinds of ways, but yeah, if we leave it to an AI to make those inferences, then we don't even need to have that structured, but it will be more organic, and therefore it could also be targeted better for specific goals, because whatever taxonomy or catalog system, whatever you put in front of that, it will always be limited in relation to specific use cases. But that's all future. looking stuff, and that will be a while.
And that's why we are here, for the future, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe it will not be that long. So let's, if we can make a step each quarter or each half year in this direction, then yeah, a couple of years looks long in crypto space, but when looking back 2 or 3 years after today, we might have covered, if we do our stuff right, we might have covered quite a lot of ground here. Yeah. And then we have a solution for all social media shit going out there.
Let's say most. All is
Awesome.
Well, we have a solution. I'm not saying that it's implemented. Actually,
Well,
probably
well,
there are already solutions going around. I hear the talks of Charles and Ben, and so there are already potential solutions. But having them implemented is a hard thing. All right, it's actually right on time right now. Any other things you would like to comment on or mention?
will you be in Lausanne? Because Pete, I think you will be there.
Sorry, where?
On the Cardano Summit in Lausanne.
Okay. I don't think so. It's not on my agenda right now.
Oh,
right.
I will have a beer. I will have a beer with
If
Pete then.
you ask me to drive, then I have an excuse.
We definitely.
What is the date? What is the date of that?
19th to 21. It's the officials, but yeah, folks are coming already. I'm there from the 15th to 22. So.
All right. I might be busy with deep funding round 2 right then, and a lot of other stuff as well, to be honest. But we'll see. You are going there, Felix?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, it would be nice meeting you in person one time. If not this time, then another time.
I also plan to use my position and advocate and spam a little bit about SingularityNET and Deep Fund and things and stuff. So
we're always grateful for that, and you're our greatest ambassador. So we really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. All right, dear people. On that wonderful note, I would say let's end this call for today. Yeah, we started out with bi-weekly meetings. So what would you propose? Would you think there is enough topics for another call next week, or shall we skip a week?
When does the next round plan to start?
I don't have a date yet. I would say the end of November or beginning of December. That's what I've been saying. It depends a little bit on my workload and how much time I have available to prepare this properly. I don't have an army of minions yet that can help me with all that stuff. So, but yeah, I hope end of November somewhere.
I think it will make sense.
And then probably the voting, realistically, the voting will then be after Christmas in somewhere in January, to give people some time to get used to the new rules, etc., and to think about it, propose stuff, create proper proposals, etc., etc.
Are there major changes happening in the second round? Do you feel there's things that we can discuss and improve before we launch?
Yeah, but a lot of things have already been discussed. There's a blog post out there with changes that I'm proposing for the next round. But yeah, of course, there are still some details that need to be filled in. Yeah, I'm not sure how heavy these details are, if they all need discussion. But yeah, I mean, I created this blog post with all changes. So for instance, one would be a minimum value for AGIX that we discussed last time, exchange value to protect the treasury from temporary downfalls. Another one would be, well, we have these two new pools, which makes a difference. The difference is that we don't have those maxima anymore. Differences will be that we will again use weighted votes, weighted reputation weighting. A difference will be that we will use quadratic voting. A difference will be that we probably also, if I can create that, use the reputation weighting for wallets based on their age, basically. All that to mitigate the opportunity for wallet splitting. Yeah, I think those are the top of my head the most important ones, but it's quite those are quite a few things, right? And we will have I hope also incentives again based on that reputation score, because I'm very curious if people have read this blog or part, if they see what kind of incentives we have been distributing in this round. It would be very interesting to see if then in the next deep funding round we will have a higher engagement. Then it's still the question if it's because of that or because it's just the next round, but would be interesting. So there's at least a lot for me to describe in proper detail and to publish on the website, etc. For the proposers out there, the regular proposers, the only thing that they need to take into account is that if the token price would go really low for a month or a couple of months, then we will not be able to disburse the whole amount. But as a countermeasure, what we're doing for them is that we plan to have to disburse the amounts at the beginning of each milestone and not at the end on delivery of the milestone, so that they always know they will get the full payment for the milestone ahead of them. But should there be, like last few days with all fuss going on, a sudden extreme drop, then it is possible that we won't be able to commit to the full dollar value of their milestone. And then we'll be in conversation with them on how to address that and what will happen if the price goes up in 2 months, and will we be able to compensate it afterwards. Those are also things that will require a little bit of thinking and doing, actually, and experiencing.
I think for now we would do well by keeping it on the weekly. There's these new rounds, which to me feels like we can ideate a little bit on how to best approach it, at least. Or I don't know, I feel like worst case scenario, after half an hour we realize like, yeah, well, that's it for now. Like we don't have to go full time, basically.
I agree. I enjoy these calls.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I do too, by the way. Okay, let's keep it on a weekly thing until we get bored, and then we can do it on a... Actually, I'm glad that you say that, Joanna, because I feel that I am the one talking all the time. And even though I really like to hear my own voice, it would be even better to have more discussion, etc. I think this was a special case, right? I wrote this blog and I had a lot of explanation to do so. But yeah, hopefully in the future, I hope at some point these meetings will also continue and be valuable in situations where for some reason I will not be able to attend one time or something. So that's
I think it's also natural, right? Because right now, I think you and Pete have the strongest experience and expertise here. But as the people join regularly, start to build their own experience and expertise, establish their role, then might shift also more to, okay, they come with already a topics of what they have in mind, what they want to discuss, and just spam you, and you don't even have time to speak anymore.
Yeah, and then we
Step by step.
do need a real good system to manage all those ideas and suggestions and proposals. Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to that. All right, then thanks a lot, and looking forward to speak to you next week.